Today I got an exciting question from one of our viewers. The question was, I have a table. I have a bunch of rows, and each row represents a customer. And I keep, every time I have a comment from a customer, I keep it in there. Um, and I want a query to only select the latest comment for a customer. All right, so let's get started. This is something you're probably going to use a lot. It's basically getting the latest or the last or some information where that your table may have repeated information about a customer or a product or anything essentially. So let's start with the simple table. So I'm going to create a simple table. And my simple table is going to have a customer ID. Okay, so I'm creating a table. It's going to have a comment, and then it's going to have a comment date. So I've created that table, and I'm going to insert into that table. I'm going to make this really, really obvious. I'm going to have customer 1 represented by the customer ID, customer 2, and customer 3. And then I made the comments really, really specific. I put customer 1, and then first comment, second comment, and last comment. And that all represents the date, right? So the first comment was in January, the second comment was in February, and the third comment was in March. Okay, so I'm going to insert these records. Let's see what happens. So we're going to insert these records, and then so 9 records inserted, and I'm just going to do a select from customer comments. Okay, great. So I'm going to select that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we have our 9 customer comments. Great. Um, Now I want to get the first comment or the last comment or whatever it is, right? I want to get that first or last comment. In most cases, we care about the last comment. So let's think about this. How can we get the last comment? Okay, okay. So what if we say where comment date is greater than or equal to a certain date? We could do that. We could do that. But what happens when we have a later comment? What happens if we fix some data? This is not really the best approach. So it's not the best. Okay. What if I say, okay, let me just order by comment date. So I'm going to order by comment date, and I'm going to do a descending order, right? So the top ones will be first. Let's see what happens here. So if I do that, then yep, I'm gonna get the last comment, right? So I'm getting the last comment as my first 3 items, right? So that's kind of good. And I guess if I just took the top 3, I guess I can use top 3. Does that work here? Um, yeah, okay, I get my last comment. But that's not the best approach because the number of customers change. So I'm not gonna be able to know that. Okay, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Mm, Let's think about this. Um, and I'm going to take out this order by, so I'm going to go back to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this row number. Okay, number. And so this row number represents what row it is in my output. So when we do row number, so here it's actually saying it's missing a window specification for function. Okay, so let's go back and let's say, and I'm going to give you over order by comment date descent. So, so row number basically works independent of the table. It sort of works after your table is selected, everything happens. We run row number and it says what we're doing here is we're giving it a window. We're saying, hey, create the row number, right? So row numbers over here, usually I put it in the first, but the first column, but that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that represents my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you see my last, I've done comment date descending. So what it does is it puts it in order. That row number represents the order based on this comment date being in a descending order, okay? So 1 is this one, 2 is this one, 3 is this one, and then we go to February, and then we go to January, okay? So this is interesting. And this over creates what we call a window. And because I'm using I'm basically saying, forget about this. I'm saying, hey, let's look at this table. If we looked at this table independently, and I'm going to, let me run something else here. Um, I'm going to order actually my table by customer ID because I want you to realize um, that the row number is actually not tied to how it looks on the table here, right? So I've ordered my table, my resulting table by customer ID, but you'll still see that my row number represents what I expect it to, right? So March represents 1, March here is 2, and March here is 3, right? You see that? So my row number is actually respecting the fact that I'm saying, hey, create that row number based on my comment date and the order of that comment date. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Now, for me to actually do this per customer, I want this windowing function, instead of using my whole table to determine my row number, I actually want it just to use these records. I only wanted to use the records of my customer 1, and then use the records of my customer 2, and then use the records of my customer 3. All right. So how do I do that? So the way I do that is essentially I go and I say row number over, and then I do partition my table by my customer ID. Let me put this from separated over here, and let's see if this works. All right, this is looking good. So my last comment is set to row number 1 for customer 1. For customer 2, my last comment is set to row number 1. For customer 3, my last comment is set to row number 1. Because now my row number, right now we have multiple 1s, multiple 2s, multiple 3s. My row number is doing this partition. And this partition basically says, hey, what I want you to consider when I create a row number is by this customer ID. I want you to partition by customer ID. And actually, I can add other fields here. But in this case, this is what we want. So we want the customer ID. Now, one thing, let's say I say this is called row num. I'm going to give it the name of row num, right? One thing that you should be aware of is that I cannot do this. This is going to fail, right? So I've created a row number, and now I say I only want my last comment, so I'm going to actually set row number equals to 1. And this will fail, and it'll give you a weird function, weird issue like this. And so instead of doing that, one way we can solve that is we actually do a select all on top of that, make this a subquery, okay? And then we say where row num equals 1. Yeah, forgot my from clause here. Okay, so I'm doing a subquery, and then I'm only taking the first ones. So now I see all of my last comments for everyone else, and that's really what I was looking for. Now there's another way, and that you can do the same thing, and which Snowflake supports, and you're looking at Snowflake here. We can do a qualify row num equals to 1. We don't have to do a select query, and this is really what it's doing under the hood. Exactly the same thing that you would get. You learned a new command here, qualify. We use row number. We created a windowing function. At first, we did it just with the comment date, and then we realized we had to actually partition by the customer ID, and we did that. And now we see that we can get all of the last comments. And this would even work if we had a new customer here.